All the students ran towards that old dark and musty basement of the school. Michael pauses for a moment, wondering why these things often happen in the same place at the same time. Then he also often ran to the basement. This school was called the School of Death in the language of others. The reason is that there is an old and dark basement of this school, which is very mysterious, and the bodies of girls were often found there. The most interesting thing is that the time of death of the girls was 1400 hours p.m. according to the expert opinion. No signs of murder were found on the bodies of the girls. Michael was very curious and one of the most exemplary students in school. The death of the girls aroused his interest even more. And yet another mysterious death happened. The victim this time was Emma, who studied in the 7th grade. Since his parents divorced, he was alone and silent. Her friends were crying over Emma's body, which was covered with a white cloth. Students and teachers gathered around Emma's body. In all the panic, many were constantly crying, "Poor Emma." That moment, Michael noticed that the headmistress, Emily, was worried about something. Michael returned to his room wondering what was bothering the director. 3 more mysterious deaths occurred in 1 month. The victims were Aurora, Nova, and Zoe. The victims were always found in the same place and at the same time. This made Michael even more interested. He believed that there was an enigma here. In order to find a unique solution to this problem, the director visited Ms. Emily's room. Principal Emily was not surprised to see Michael. It was as if he was waiting for her. "Please sit down." He invited Michael to sit on a chair. "Thank you, ma'am." Michael sat down on the chair. "Madam Director, what is happening here? I don't understand anything. Why? Mysterious deaths are on the rise. Why in the old cellar, and why exactly at 1400 hours? Michael directed his questions to the principal. "Mrs. Principal, 1 year ago, a 7th grade girl named Grace accidentally falls into the old and dark basement of the school while playing hide and seek with her friends. His friends were looking for him. After they couldn't find him, they told us about it. We searched for Grace together with the police. Unfortunately, we found his dead body in the basement. The examination revealed that the girl died at 1400 hours. The mass media also found out about it. Everyone knew about it. But the fact that the rest of the girls died in the basement, and at that time, leaves me in doubt," says the director. "I feel that Grace has something to do with the death of the other girls here." The principal cried. Michael was frightened by the thought that suddenly came to his mind. Principal Emily noticed this too. Michael began to speak with trembling lips. "Grace is taking revenge on other girls, madam. It is the old and dark basement, and the exact time of 1400 hours. That causes the death of the girls. It is a pity that he is no more, but his restless and rebellious spirit still wanders around the school. He beckons his victims to the basement with a look in their eyes. There, he shouted that the girls would be killed, without any signs of murder and without signs." Suddenly, Michael saw the clock in the principal's room. It was 13:55. "Headmistress, come on, we have to stop. Grace. Now, I feel that the next death will happen," says Michael. Mrs. Emily and Michael ran to the basement. They saw a girl walking towards the old and dark basement of the school. She was a 6th grade blonde-haired Lucy. "Stop, Lucy. Hurry." Michael tries to stop her. Lucy's eyes were fixed on one spot, and she herself seemed to be spellbound. The headmistress suddenly screamed as she ran. At this moment, Michael turned around and his whole body trembled. Grace's rebellious spirit appeared in front of them. He was very angry. The director looked at the lady and Michael with contempt. Luce regained consciousness and screamed when she saw Grace. When Michael tries to talk to Grace, the rebel spirit attacks them. Lucy, the headmistress, and Michael flew about 10 meters away. Michael, finding strength in himself, stood up and again faced the rebellious spirit and began to speak. "Grace, we know you. You were a very smart girl at school. You were a very exemplary student. Others loved you. No one has anything to do with your tragic death. All the teachers and students in the school cried after your death. No one forgot you." At this moment, the rebellious spirit suddenly stopped and turned to Michael again. Michael continued to speak. "We still love you, and we will never forget you. Just Grace don't kill the other girls, it's not their fault. Please don't take revenge on others." He finished his speech. At this moment, Grace looked at Michael and the others, smiled, and then disappeared. No deaths have been reported in the school for the past 6 months. Students are all happy. Everyone is busy with their work. The old cellar has been renovated and brought to new condition. Michael and Mrs. Emily were sitting in their room talking. "Thank you, Michael. You are so smart and brave." The principal expressed her gratitude to him, saying that he found a solution to these mysterious events in our school. Mysterious house. "I want to buy you a new house before your wedding," Andrew said to his son Fred. "It would be great to live in a new house with my wife after my wedding," said Fred. Unable to hide his joy, Andrew kept his promise and gifted a new house for his children. 1 month later, the new family, Fred and Zoe, moved into the house that their father had given them. Fred turned to his wife, saying, "My dear, make me some coffee." "Sure, sweetheart." Zoe smiled at Fred and went into the kitchen to make a cup of coffee. Zoe, singing in a happy mood and trying to make coffee, sees a strange ghost sitting on the kitchen furniture. He suddenly screams. Fred, who is watching TV, runs into the kitchen in a panic. "Darling, I saw a ghost sitting on the kitchen furniture," Zoe cried. Fred looked into the kitchen to his surprise, and there was no one there. On his way to work, Fred was about to say goodbye to his wife when he saw a ghost standing by the bedroom window on the 2nd floor and couldn't hide his surprise. Fred came home from work and was reading the newspaper in the bedroom, and suddenly, the bed started to move slowly. At first, he thought his wife Zoe was joking. Then the bed moved very quickly. He called his wife for help, but suddenly the bedroom door was slammed shut. The husband and wife shouted, "What happened?" 2:30 a.m. Fred went to the bathroom. For some reason, he was still restless. Strange and inexplicable noises were heard from the lower basement of the house. He ran down to the basement. There is nothing there. He entered the house thinking that he might have heard it, closed the bedroom door, and his wife was about to lie down next to Zoe. Zoe was suddenly sleepy and she didn't want us. "We have to go." He got up saying that we can't stay in this house. Made strange movements. The next day, Zoe could not remember these events. When her husband went to work, she was left alone, and then she sat on her chair and did not understand what was happening in this house. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, and he went and opened it. He did not see anyone behind the door. His fear grew. Suddenly, the sound of broken dishes was heard from the kitchen. He ran into the kitchen. Unfortunately, broken dishes were strewn on the floor. Zoe cuts her hand while picking up broken dishes. Some hissing sounds were heard from the water faucet. Zoe realized that this was where the voice was coming from and stopped. "Go away. Go away. Leave my house." The voice grew louder and louder. Zoe froze where she stood. The couple could not sleep. For some reason, late at night, the next morning at breakfast, Fred said he saw a short, white-haired, hunched old man in his dream. He pointed his hand towards the door and said that he was getting angry. His wife Zoe told her husband about the mysterious incident that happened yesterday. They were confused again. To find out the reason for these mysterious events, Zoe asked her neighbor Mrs. Eleanor about it. Lady Eleanor sighed and told about these mysterious events. A short, hunchbacked, and white-haired old man lived in this house. He didn't like talking to people. He always yelled at the children when they were playing around the house. His dead body remained in the bedroom on the 2nd floor for 10 days. No one knew he was dead. A relative who lives far away said he buried her and sold the house. That the old man was suffering from cancer. Most of the people who bought this house stayed in it for a week and then sold it for cheap after mysterious events. Mrs. Eleanor guesses that the house is haunted by the ghost of an old man. He does not want to give his house to others, husband and wife. Fred and Zoe came to this conclusion. They decided not to sell the house and pray for the dead old man. It seems that the husband and wife's prayers have been answered. They were happy that there was no noise and strange, mysterious happenings in the house for 1 month. They told Mrs. Eleanor about it. In the evening, when Fred and Zoe finished their meal, they turned on the radio and together, they were glad to have finished the mysterious events that had been left behind. They danced together. They hugged and kissed each other. At that moment, the music playing on the radio suddenly stopped. Now, instead of music, there was a hoarse, muffled voice.
Leave my house. This house is mine. Go away.